In this video, we're going to talk about the daily and weekly price action for CleanSpark and Bitcoin. I'm going to talk about when I'm adding, when I'm trimming. We talk about the short and long dated open options interest as well. That's going to be important. We like to see what the big boys are thinking on this one. We'll go through any CleanSpark news. We've just had earnings, so there's a little bit to touch on there. Very exciting. I don't want to hold you hostage, so I'm just going to come out and say I'm still super bullish on CleanSpark. I know price is really suppressed. The short interest is super high still, but we'll talk more about the plan with that as well. Other than that, my live portfolio on eToro is in the description down below. I'm currently at 165% in 2 years. Now that's fallen down from 200%, not because I've had a massive pullback, but because the way the calculation works. So I think I'm only down about 10%, but I'll check that because I'm not sure. I do want to take a quick minute to apologise. I know I look tired, and a good example of that is I've just recorded this whole video and forgot to actually record my screen, so I've got to do it again. It was the Super Bowl last night, so I was up super late watching that, so sorry, I might miss some things from my first recording of this, but I'll try and remember everything that I said. So if you just look at price action, we had a clear breakout of this kind of black trend line. Now, we have pushed down quite aggressively on that one. We're hitting this kind of volume shelf at 12.10 and it being rejected. And the bull market band, even though it's thin, is still causing some downward pressure. I suspect if we look at the open options interest on this one, we'll see market makers wanting to sell off and get max pain for that one as well to kind of burn out the longs and the leverages. Downside support, though, I think it's going to be around $9.2. You know, if we go below that, it's going to be crazy. There's going to be a little bit of an air gap. I think we can see more of a volume gap in the weekly chart, but we'll look at that after. Upside, though, this red line, 13.23, is kind of going to be the resistance at the next area. And then after that, we're pretty much home. We've just got this huge volume gap. The big stickler, again, is going to be 16.34. You might end up trimming some out when we get to there. I don't want to, but I think if we do a little quick line here, it's going to be a 60% growth. And with it being such a large part of my position and affecting my risk score for eToro, I'm going to need to trim off some of that, which I don't want to do. But unfortunately, I can't be copied on eToro if I go into a risk score 7 very easily, which is annoying. I did trim out a lot of my other minor positions, my lower conviction ones. Now, I think I will add back to iron if we do get a substantial pullback, just so I've got some HPC exposure on that one, but it's not going to be a core conviction play on this one. I think I've been riding this CleanSpark since it was right at the lows back here. If I zoom out, I've been trading it in, out, in, out, in, out. I've made a bunch of money on it. I still think that's going to be the way to do it through the rest of the cycle. But I'm not as confident doing that with the other ones. They just had the price action hasn't been as good, and I don't think that fundamentally the company is as strong. So I'm sticking with CleanSpark, and MicroStrategy has got to be more of my treasury ETF play on this one. Again, I'm not going to hold these all the way through for years. I think there's a possibility with CleanSpark talking about doing Bitcoin yields, that could be a real possibility to hold it, but it's not going to be a huge position in my portfolio for that. And right now the money markets are not quite mature enough for them to grow that yield very well. I mean, there could be some Coinbase deals or some OTC deals, but I don't know. But again, it's probably not going to be ideal for this cycle. It's probably for a year or two's time. So I'll wait for price to slide back and then I'll start entering. Oh, sorry, my voice made a really weird noise then. So we talked about this price action higher up there, 28. I'm probably going to start trimming a fair bit around 25 to 35, I think I put on here, mainly because I think a lot of people are going to start hitting the sells on that then, and that's pretty good growth. From here, 25 will be 121%, and so on and so forth. I think the price is going to be much higher. A lot of the price for CleanSpark is going to depend on where Bitcoin ends up. If Bitcoin ends up around 150 to 250, that could be $100 to $180 target. Now, this is a bit of an issue, though. The short interest on this one is generated by the arbitrage play from the bond market, which is really muting price appreciation on this one. So we need to wait to see what happens with the short interest on this one. There should be a squeeze at some point when they go net long. Don't know when it is. The changes to FASB accounting, a lot of people thought that would change things. It hasn't. We obviously had the little pop, which was great to see. But I think a lot of people thought suddenly having the surprise 124% increase in earnings was going to boost things, but I think they've forgot to acknowledge the fact that it's not something that's fundamentally changed in the company. This is just an accounting change. It's just how they tell investors what they're doing. So nothing too crazy there. MACDX Plus, again, Death Cross still active. Things are kind of just flat. It's not expanding, which is nice. And then flow is also kind of flat. So on the daily, essentially, it just looks like it's having a pause. It's waiting to see what happens. We're probably going to need Bitcoin and things to get a little bit violent before we push out, and then investors go net long. We're seeing a lot of capitulation in the crypto space, altcoins. There's no alt season coming, but you know, this happens every time at this point in the cycle. Fear just makes people make illogical decisions, whilst the big boys load up and retail sells and sells. This is the market cycle in nearly everything. I don't know why people get confused about it. It's going to happen. It's happening. We have to deal with it. Moving on to the weekly chart here. Let me zoom in a little bit. Getting a bit laggy. Got a new computer, still have lag issues. I don't think Canva likes TA. Okay, so again, on here, here's this volume gap that I was talking about. If we did fall below kind of $9, $6 is kind of a little bit smaller. We might get a small bounce here, but this is going to be the main next area, 430. So again, at this point in the cycle, I wouldn't expect us to fall lower unless the shorts get really crazy. But the shorts have had such a hard time pushing it lower in this space. I think it's going to be a big ask for them to push lower. I think it's about time for them to start rolling over and switching to net long on that one, but we'll see. Okay, so when we looked at the technical charts in TradingView, we noticed that 1250 we had the solid rejection. We can see it here. What else can we see on this chart with open options interest? Look at all these strikes here. There's a reason market makers want to push price away from that as well. I know this is showing slightly higher at $13, but if we look a couple of weeks out, we'll probably see more volume creeping a little bit higher up. Basically, all market makers want to do is max pain for these options traders. They want to get as much of that liquidity as they can, and there it is in black and white. But that's good to know that things have moved up. This level should fade away into the next week. Let's put it out a week, see what we're working with. A lot more volume here. So again, a little bit of confirmation, $13 is where things are moving. But things are starting to get a bit more bullish for CleanSpark. The expectations creeping up. We like this. We like this a lot. Let's push it out a week again. So yeah, certainly getting up towards where all this volume is going to be. Should be fairly easy. If we pull it down, I don't know if it's going to go funny. It always does when I move this down, which is really annoying. So kind of 15 looks max. I'm going to put it out to, I think, maybe July, kind of. That's where I would have normally put the cycle peak, but I don't know if that's going to be the case this time. Again, around that time, we start to see the much higher strikes here, which is something to take note of. Now, I think the cycle is going to be much longer than normal, but I wouldn't, if you're going to be in options on this one, I wouldn't push further out just in case, because you could get stung on the time here. For example, if we look at January 27, 26, it's probably a better bet, wouldn't it, towards the beginning of next year. I mean, we're still getting a lot of interest here, so maybe people are thinking more that it's going to be a longer cycle. But again, it's not something I would risk, not with a stock like CleanSpark. If you're going to make bets like that, go for something more stable. So for CleanSpark, obviously it's been earnings and I've been away for a while, so really we're just going to touch on some of that. I'm not going to go too into detail. I am going to do a full write-up on my website, thecraftytrader.com, and do a full earnings breakdowns. But I thought I'd just give you a quick look at some of the things I'm looking at on here that I like. This is just really visually easy to digest, which we like. Obviously, revenue growth's gone up. We like that. Mining hash rate's gone up. Again, I think the growth here has been crazy. I'm very excited. They're prepaid up to about 50 exahash, I think, last time I checked. Total cost per Bitcoin mined. Again, this is different from the number they had on earnings, which was, I think, 34K or something like that, but that was on their site owned. Now, this is a lot broader metric. So their total cost per Bitcoin mined was 56K. Now, again, this is one of the reasons I like the fact that they didn't spend that bond offering money on buying Bitcoin because they can make it at half the cost of what we're selling now. I mean, prices fluctuating around about 100k, 105 to lower. But when you compare that to other companies that are just buying Bitcoin at 100k, this is the much better alternative, in my opinion. Obviously, the market doesn't think that at the moment, but I think they will be proven wrong in the long term. Net income, obviously, we've got a massive boner candle here. Now, that is the FASB accounting as well. So, but I still like the trend, and the trend will continue to go up as Bitcoin price appreciates. What else? Shares outstanding. Obviously, we've got the offering, so the shares will increase. Cash still sitting on healthy cash. Long-term debt obviously has gone up as we've now got that new obligation. Operating expenses have gone up since Q4 2023. Now this makes sense when you time it with the halving and all that good stuff. It's going to take more money to increase your hash rate because Bitcoin's now twice as hard to mine, which also kind of aligns with Bitcoin production. As Bitcoin became harder to produce, then obviously that slides down. Then if we just quickly go on key charts, Bitcoin holdings, obviously I think we're now over actually 10k last I checked. Bitcoin selling, they do sell a small amount per month just to cover some basic costs. They do put that on their monthly updates as well on their investor relations page if you want to keep track of that. It's a very small amount. What else was interesting on here? Bitcoin produced per day, we saw that drop. Obviously the halving comes into effect there. Electricity cost, the cost of electricity has gone up a lot as Bitcoin became harder to mine and the cost of electricity became higher. That's obviously seen a lot of miners look to other sources of power. So I do expect this to eventually roll over, especially as old Trumpy boy there starts having a little bit of an effect. Mining efficiency, obviously that comes down as well. Eventually this should bottom out and start rolling back higher though as we get up to scale. Anything else on there? Blah, blah, blah. Ratios. Let's have a quick look if there's anything exciting here. I don't really use this page too much, to be honest. Obviously, revenue per employee dropped off as well with the cycle. Estimates. Now, this is Wall Street analysts' estimates. It's not actually the guidance for the company, but they're expecting revenue to shoot up. Interestingly, though, they're kind of not changing their EPS estimates, but I would expect this to change to become higher when they get used to FSB accounting. Activity, institutional ownership, we'll take a look at that on Fintel as well in a minute. So I want to talk about that. Short interest is still super high. They haven't started rolling over. I think it's actually higher than that right now, though. So let's just look at Fintel while we're on there. I just want to point out that retail is obviously dumping this and we've got the bond market shorting it, but that doesn't mean that long investors aren't buying this up hand over fist. Look at this ramp up. The big boys are buying this. Retail are dumping this and are super fearful about buying it. Now, traditionally, you want to be on the side of the big boys. The aim of the game really is to buy things before the big boys get a hold of it, before they start driving the price up. There will be some kind of, I don't want to call it manipulation. I will say it's providing liquidity. That's how they justify wiggling the price around. And that's all market makers. But the main thing, this is ramping up aggressively. Very exciting. Do you want to go quickly to CleanSpark earnings? And again, I'm going to go through all this in detail on my website, thecraftytrader.com. But really, just a quick overview. Total assets, 2 billion. That is incredible. With total stockholders' equity, about 1.8 billion. I think this company is priced pretty much with the expectation for no Bitcoin appreciation. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so total current assets, 1.9 billion we just talked about. Over the previous year, that's an insane growth there. Liabilities, not as, I mean, it's doubled, but it's still, pretty amazing. Not too much extra to talk about. Again, I'm going to go through all of this in more detail on my website. I just wanted to kind of show you if you want to access this data, it's live on the investor relations page of CleanSpark as well there for you. Taking a quick look at Bitcoin. This video is already quite long. We see price again. We're just kind of chopping around here. Capitulation here is unreal. The price action on Bitcoin has been the market makers perfect scenario. It's taking money from retail and giving it to institutions whilst they're growing their positions. Retail's absolutely dumping things. Retail hates fear. The big boys love it. They love to take your shares on the cheap, basically, and then they love to sell you them at extortionate prices on the flip side as well. And for some reason, everyone always falls for it, but eventually people will learn, and then new people coming, and then they dump their bags on them. So it's a vicious cycle. But other than that, if we drop below kind of this 91 kind of $1,000, I mean, we've been wicking up strongly from that, so I expect it to be a good support. But falling under that and the bull market band support band here, we've got this very big volume shelf. Now, that does give me worry that if we do fall, we'll have a substantial fallback down to the kind of mid 70k range. That's not necessarily a bad thing because I would love to buy more at that price range. But again, I think with capitulation, there's probably going to be a lot of interest in falling back down to that side. To the upside, though, obviously we've got this orange trend line to compete with. For now, it's kind of set at 109k. That's going to be a stickler to get past. But once we do, measured move completes at 126, which would be the next kind of sticking area. I would expect to see some selling there and more capitulation. But if we scroll up where the trends are, we're looking at 150 again is going to be a sticking area. The market expectations currently for the cycle top based on a bunch of averages. I think James Invest answers. This was from there. I just made a quick note, so I had a reference for it. So the average is kind of 200k. So if we look where that is on the chart, we do have a Fibonacci level slightly above that, which is why I changed my end of cycle price range from 240 to 204 to 280. Purely based on these Fibonacci levels. Again, the cycle top here is going to be very hard to predict. We're seeing governments and countries and all sorts planning to buy Bitcoin when we start getting that reserve. So the parabolic phase of this is going to be super unpredictable. Anyone that says they know where the top of this cycle is going to be is absolutely fibbing to you. They are throwing darts at a dartboard with a blindfold on. It's a pure guess. All we can confidently say is it's going to go up. There will be a supply crunch. Even just basing in the fact that MicroStrategy now has enough cash on hand to buy up a huge portion of the available Bitcoin. That's not even accounting for the other countries, and then other companies on top of that, and then more retail as we move. There is going to be a big move at some point. We just don't know when. Now, I think the cycle is going to be a bit later than normal. So timelines, normally I base my take profits and stuff on times. And as you can see on here, my kind of where I want to be trimming was around May. Now I think we're going to be later than that. So I think I'm going to have to be a bit more lenient with my rules on this one and start looking at other things. But RSI, kind of neutral. MACDX Plus is still super healthy. We're still really in a good area. Institutions absolutely loving it still, and flow's kind of flat. So again, this is kind of like what we looked at with CleanSpark. Things are just pausing right now. People want to know where it's going to break. There's a lot of liquidity issues globally right now, and worry and fear. And once that's gone, people start getting confident. Liquidity starts coming back, which is going to have to come back. Things will get exciting, and I am for it. I have started to buy more Bitcoin and stuff already. Solana as well. I'm very excited about that one. But that's it.
That's a wrap. If you enjoyed this content, give it a like, share with your mum, your nan, your dad, your dog, and I will see you tomorrow for Tesla Tuesday.